morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. And today I'm back by request for a subject that a couple people wrote in and contacted me that they wanted some more information about, and they had some comments. So I'm more than happy to do that. And today's vlog is going to be the one of the ultimate crossovers. It's about one of the ways that inmates actually survive in state prison in California, and I'm sure it's the same in actually other states as well. And that is doing whatever you have to do to survive, you know, at all times. And sometimes that involves following the rules, but doing things that you can to survive. And a lot of the times it involves actually breaking the rules, violating the rules. But you know what? We're all human, and I don't say that it's right, but that's what it takes to survive in jail and in state prison. When you're incarcerated in any type of institution, uh, you know common sense dictates that you have to do what you have to do to get through and survive. And this has been going on for such a long time, and I'm sure that a lot of other former inmates and current inmates agree with me. Most do actually. It's just like being out here in what is called the free world. If you want to call it the free world, is you do things to survive, but you don't necessarily have to break the law because there's so much that you can do to survive. And I know that's a whole nother subject, whether it's you know being homeless and having to take care of yourself, or being of median income and having to do what you need to do to get your family going, or being wealthy and surviving in other ways, emotionally, physically, however, there's so many different aspects to that it's countless when you're out in society. But when you're in prison, you are in a smaller environment. You're a fish in a bowl, and so you're constantly watched, you're constantly monitored, which I'm sure out here it's the same thing these days, or maybe it's always been like that, but to a certain degree. But now it's even more so than ever out in society. So let's take a little day trip, field trip to incarceration in the state of California, and I'm sure in other states. And we'll start with, for instance, when you're in the general population of jails and prisons, of course, you're very limited on what you can have and how and what form you can have those things in. So we can start off with, let's say, supply. The most important is cleanliness and hygiene of yourself and your surroundings. If you're going to be in there for more than a month or even more than a day, you want to keep clean. But here's something that I know only to be in the county of Los Angeles, because that's about the only county I've ever been incarcerated in, and then the state of California. I know in Los Angeles County, the county jail system is the most corrupt and the most difficult, and the conditions are the filthiest. Those are just physical conditions. And then if we want to talk about medical conditions, it's even worse. It's rough in the LA County incarceration system in their male and female jails. And there are different institutions for the jail system, the sheriff's department, and they are all really bad. Especially currently, Linwood for the females is still open, and it's one of the oldest facilities. And I'm sure they constantly still, as they always have, violate laws, and it's always dirty in there. So keeping yourself and your surroundings clean. So they have a Title 15 that they're supposed to go by. That's their so-called Bible of what they are allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do, and they always violate that. So per Title 15, they are legally required to give you certain, allow you showers a certain number of times per week. They are legally required to give you the hygiene items that you need, like soap, toothpaste, toothbrush, a razor to shave with, shampoo, those products to keep yourselves clean. They are supposed to give you cleaning supplies to clean your, I don't want to call it house, but it is technically called a housing unit and where you're confined. And if you're in general population, I know in Linwood, just like Twin Towers, you are confined in individual cells unless you've been assigned to sleep in the day room area. And then you're confined to a small space. Of course, you can walk around during the daytime, or however the housing staff deems at the time, and they usually go by however they feel like doing it. So typically what has been done for the longest time by inmates is that they are not given adequate, and I remember when I was in there too, we were never given adequate supplies for ourselves personally for cleanliness or to keep our surroundings clean. Now, if you are fortunate enough to have family or friends or anybody to send you money so that you can shop the commissary, because in jail it's called commissary and prison is called canteen, then you can buy a certain amount of really cheap shampoo for really high prices. But you have those things: shampoo, soap, even you can buy conditioner, because that's one of the items that you're not given is conditioner to detangle your hair. That's something that's up to you to buy. They give you, maybe if you're lucky, the minimum. Most of the time they don't even give you the bare minimum. When you're first booked into the jail system in LA County Jail, it is the worst conditions that you can be in by far, and it's always been that way despite the lawsuits that they've faced, the settlement agreements that they are technically required by a judge to go by, but they're always violating. So when you're first booked into the county jail, if you're not allowed or able to post bail, and I know the bail laws are supposed to be changing or supposed to have changed, however, if you are going to be confined in there, when they take you off of the bus and you're herded with a bunch of inmates into whatever holding cell, there is no soap in there to even wash your hands. And you have to keep in mind that you're coming off of approximately 72 hours of having been in the city jail, where it's also dirty, but in there they at least give you a little skivvy of soap. So this is 72 hours, about 3 days, where you're already dirty because you've been in surroundings with other really filthy people, and then where there's not too many resources there, and then you're going through your arraignment in the court, and those holding cells are usually really, really filthy in most of the court lockups. So there's that. And then after that, if you're not allowed or able to post bail and you're going to be in the jail for a few days to however long, then you're going to be bused to the county jail. However, en route to reaching the county jail, which is dreadful, you're going to have a stopover at the men's county jail. And the holding system there for the women is ancient. It's not been updated. The plumbing in there is really, really bad. Of course, there's no soap in there. Most of the time, the sink doesn't work, so there's no water, and you're lucky if the floors aren't flooded already when you get there and they unshackle you to keep you in the holding cell area, which again, I will say, and I can never say it enough times, is ancient. I mean, it's almost medieval, and I'm exaggerating just a tiny bit. It's really, really bad. Um, and if you're deemed a K-10 inmate like I was, because I forever ago had a lawsuit, a civil lawsuit against them, it's how they retaliate with some inmates. It's how they retaliated with me, and they've always deemed me since then a K-10 inmate, even though I never had any uh, fights with other inmates there, so on and so forth. So, but I did have a lot of run-ins with the staff. I won't call them cops because they don't have what it takes to be called real cops. These are notoriously known as babysitters, you know. So, and if you're a K-10 deemed inmate, if you're a keep away, if they've deemed you a keep away in any capacity and you have a special wristband on, when you get off the bus for the stopover at the men's county jail, they put you in a separate holding cell, which most times is not even a cell, it's actually a toilet stall with a solid door which is locked. And that's even worse because most of the time the floor in that tiny stall where you can only stand in is flooded, and it's horrible. The walls have been stained over so many years, so much. Again, no soap, and I would say about 96% of the time there's no tissue to use. If you need to pee, use the restroom, there's none. This is down to the nitty gritty, this information. So you'll be there for a while, a pretty long time, and they don't unshackle you if you have a special wristband and you're deemed a keep away. They keep you shackled until the next jail bus, prison bus comes to pick you up and put you back on the bus in a cage within the bus that you're already locked in to drive you to the county jail. Once you get to the county jail, then you're herded into the next holding cell with no soap, no tissue, absolute lack of. And that's pending processing. Now, once they processed you at that stage, which takes several hours, the processing, according to them, is still not done because they don't send you to a permanent housing unit. They send you to another temporary reception housing unit. And now, the thing is that if you're deemed a general population inmate, you usually get medically screened again in that reception housing unit within a day, and then they send you to a permanent unit. So, but if you're deemed a keep away, again, like I was, you are kept in that reception housing unit, which you're not supposed to be kept in more than a certain amount of hours, but they keep you there for days on end because they put every inmate, even inmates that have been brought in after you, ahead of you. And so you don't get that second medical screening to be sent to a permanent housing unit, and you do have to be medically screened. There are so many inmates coming in with so many conditions, but even myself, I've always been healthy. It's a process that they put you through regardless, and I can see how it's necessary, because the jail itself has so many still airborne diseases. They have staph infection going around. They have so many things, so you have to be screened. And they are supposed to legally afford you showers and a small bag, which is nicknamed a fish kit, because you're looked at as fish, which is a slang term for any inmate that's just been brought in. And that little kit is supposed to have shampoo, soap, toothbrush, toothpaste. They don't give you a razor to shave with because they still haven't permanently classified you. So you are supposed to get those essentials, those basic necessities to live, and they don't give it to you. They're supposed to, but they don't. They give you one blanket, no sheet, no pillowcase, because there are no pillows in there. There used to be, not anymore, has been like that for a long time, no pillows. And they stick you in a cell. There are no day room positions in there, unless it gets horrendously overcrowded, which most of the times they are horrendously overcrowded, but they still try to stick every inmate in a cell, either cell alone or cell with another inmate, and you have no idea who and what you're going to be celled with, and the staff don't care. So, survival. You don't get anything to clean yourself with, they break the law there. You don't get showers in there. So if you're like me, you have to fight for the soap and the shampoo, toothbrush and toothpaste. You have to fight for a shower. And by fight, I mean legally in any way you can. And when that doesn't work, then you have to refuse to do some things until they give you that. You have to go through the chain of commands. You go through the deputies or CAs in there, which they really don't give a fuck. Excuse my language. So then there have been times when there's a slot in the cell door, and by the way, you will eat peanut butter sandwiches every day that you're there. You will eat basically a microwave burrito and a small carton of juice, orange juice, or whatever they elect to give you at the time, for every day and every night that you're there. You will eat the same thing, and your body it'll result in toxins in your body because you're eating the same thing every day, unless you choose to fast and just flush out with water, which is the water in the sink, and it's borderline safe, which means it's mostly not safe, really. They exaggerate the safety and the lead levels of the water, but it's what you have. They do serve you. They call feeding you. I call it serving. It's a better term. They serve you through a slot in the cell door, and then they shut it after they collect your trash, which is once in a while they might collect it. Most of the time they don't. So when they first put you in there, the inmate workers, who are really lazy, they usually don't clean the cell. So you go in there with trash from other inmates that were in there before you. It's already in there in piles. And then sometimes you're stuck with your trash, like the wrappers from the cellophane wrappers from the packaged 2 slices of bread, from the burritos or whatever else, which is borderline edible because a lot of the time their food is stale. So how do you survive when you are not given the means to clean yourself and keep hygiene or take a shower? Well, if you're like me and some other inmates who are kept there for days on end, you must sometimes do things that you're technically not supposed to do. Like when they want to come by and close the slot in the cell door, you have to keep your hands open and tell them, listen, you haven't given me any soap. I need soap. I need a shower. I need these things. And so the war begins. And sometimes it's literally a tug of war. You're pulling on something to keep your hands out, and they're trying to pull your hands off to stick your hands back in the slot and shut it, and sometimes they shut it on your hands. This is how they are in there. That's why they call it the worst and the most corrupt and crooked jail system. They will claim otherwise, but facts are facts. I've been there, unfortunately, ashamed to say, several times, so I know. Now, once you do finally get transferred to a so-called permanent housing area, which is, they call them pods, I call them cell blocks, because in reality, that's really what they are. Then weekly you're supposed to be given supplies to clean the cell in which you're confined to. That's really most of the time not the case. You are supposed to be given a certain number of showers per week, a certain amount of hours out of the cell to take a shower, use the phone, and ask they're called trustees, the inmate workers, through the slot in the door of the actual pod, which is a unit within the cell block. You have to bend down and ask the trustee, hi so and so, or hey so and so, because the slot sits low on the door, or at least mid-length, to where you have to bend down and ask the trustee, okay, can you get me this, that, and that? If they're friends with you and they like you, they'll give you things even when they're not supposed to. So maybe more abrasive cleanser, if you're lucky, and other types of disinfectant and extra rags to clean with. If not, they'll give you the bare minimum. A lot of the times I've been lucky, I've been fortunate to where I could get more and not just use it for that day to clean with, but to also keep a little more in a bottle from shampoo that I've already used, so the bottle is empty. It's what you do. You keep each and every container that you can. You wash and clean it out when you can, and you save it so that you can pour cleanser in there, disinfectant in there. Even if it's some Windex type of cleaner that's really meant for glass, if you need to, you clean the bunk and the floor where you're confined with those things. You're not supposed to keep them. It's considered contraband, but you keep all the chemicals that you can to clean with for the times when they don't give it to you, which is a majority of the time. You stock up on, and it's also considered contraband, all the extra packets of shampoo, packets of deodorant, because their deodorant comes in packets and it doesn't necessarily work because everything is cheaper than cheap. It's the lowest quality. But you accumulate all the toothbrushes, and the toothbrushes are literally the size of your thumb. So you can barely hold it because there's barely enough stem on the toothbrush. It's mostly just bristles. They do this for safety reasons, which again I can see is justified and necessary, but it needs to have more of a stem so you can hold it to properly brush your teeth, because as it stands, you don't get a proper brushing. It's difficult to grip when there's barely a place to grip the toothbrush by, but it's what you have, so you brush your teeth more times than just 3 or 4 times a day. You ask the trustees, the inmate workers, every time that you can, to give you as many fish kits as possible, and you accumulate all of those things. And when they do a shakedown, of course, they're going to take it, and then you have to start all over again. This is survival and existing when you're incarcerated, in LA and California and wherever else you are. This is how it goes. Now, there are times when you're going to be locked down, either just you being locked down solo, or the entire unit being locked down, or the entire cell block, or maybe a jail-wide lockdown. And there may be some inmates or an inmate who you associate with and you need things from because that inmate has something that you don't have and you need, or vice versa. But you can't pass anything to each other. What do? Of course, the notorious fish lines, which are actually a good thing if you know how to use them. What's a fish line? A fish line is literally something that you fish with. So when you are permanently housed, unless you're in the mental area, even myself as a keep away, they still give you sheets to tie around the gym mat that they call a mattress, so you can sleep on it at night. So what you do is you tear the sheet in strips and you tie those skinny strips and you tie them together. You make them skinny enough that they can't snap or break. That's considered destruction of county property, and of course is contraband. but when it's necessitated, it's what you do. So you make the line as long as you need to, which is going to be several feet long, so it's going to keep you busy for a while. You tie all the strips together, you make the long line, and then you put something weighted at the end. Well, in the LA County Jail, what do you have that's flat enough and weighted enough? They don't give you metal, they don't, of course, they don't give you those things. But you have to be resourceful. What do you use? The lunch. Yeah, because in the lunch, in all of the times that I've been there, never once have I touched the cold cut, which they call bologna. That comes, it's two round pieces in the tradition of Oscar Mayer, but it's not Oscar Mayer brand. Comes in a flat, clear package. It's vacuum sealed. Incidentally, the inmates keep these for days and days, sometimes for weeks. No refrigeration, and they still eat it. I've never so much as opened one. But even if you're like me, you've had no use as far as consuming one. You keep it so that you poke a hole in the part where the vacuum seal is not going to be undone, and you tie your line onto it, because that's weighted and it's flat. It's going to go under the low cell doors, and those cell doors are solid and they're low. The only thing that fits under those doors is about a sheet of paper. So but it's weighted, and if you can sling it out far enough, you're ready to fish, you and the other inmate or inmates. So what you do is the other inmate does the same thing. Inmate survival 101, you have a fish line on hand. So the other one takes out her, or if you're in the male facility, his fish line, and you throw yours out enough, far out in front and across enough towards the other inmate's cell that the other inmate can throw out his or hers to cross over yours, and slowly but surely and steadily pull it's going to cross your line at some time. The weighted pieces, in this case the cold cuts, are going to intersect, and the other inmate can pull your line in. Sometimes the line goes over it and it misses, so you guys keep doing this over and over again until they intersect eventually, and you or the other inmate pulls the other line in, and now you are connected, because you're going to tie your line to that inmate's line, and now you have a cable going. So whatever you need to pass and you can get under the door, sometimes you have to flatten things and you have to be inventive that way. You have that cable going, and you hope that it doesn't get caught by one of the deputies or CAs or whatever other staff conducting checks or coming through for whatever reason. And you better hope that while you're doing this, another inmate doesn't flood the floors. All of the floors there in all of the facilities have been flooded at one time or another, and that's just how it is. So you have to think about it. Even though they've been mopped, these are floors that have been flooded with urine and other bodily material of other inmates over the years and years and years, with so many horrible conditions and diseases and everything else. And they can say they disinfect the floors when they mop them, but can anything disinfect it enough? No. This is survival. I fished along the floors on a cable. Some inmates will fish through the toilets. I've never done that, never would, will not happen. But it's been done in the jails and in the prison when you're in lockdown. For instance, in the prison in Chowchilla, or when VSPW was open for women, but then the males do it too, it's open for males now. They make the same line, but with something smaller at the end. I'm not sure how, but they put the line in the toilet and they push it into the drain, and then both cells that have the same plumbing system that are connected that way, they start flushing their toilets at the same time, and I think one inmate's line comes up to the other inmate's assigned toilet. Why would they do this? One of the many reasons, and to me it's never going to be justified ever. I don't even like sitting on the toilets, but you have to pee, you have to sit on those toilets. If you're going to be there for an extended period of time, you put paper down on them. Even the paper is limited, tissue is limited everywhere. So are sanitary pads. Okay, so going back to fishing through the toilets. In Chowchilla is where the females on death row are housed. On death row, which there have never been any deaths for the females in California. Side note, fun fact, the females on death row in California have not been put to death in so many years. Appeal after appeal. Okay, so, however, if you're a general population inmate or for any reason who has been housed in the lockup in ADSEG, administrative segregation in the California prison system, and you're a female in Chowchilla, you will at some point see or somehow from a distance come across female death row, because they're in there, except it's caged off so that they can come out of their cells and walk around, because you as an ADSEG inmate, it's different from the county jail. You will never come out for any period of time without being handcuffed behind your back, or at the very least being shackled in waist shackles, okay, in any space or area of that ADSEG, inside or outside. They, however, death row have their own area where they can come out unshackled, out of their cells, but it's still within a cage. They, as death row inmates, are deemed a little differently because that is their permanent housing unit and area. They get things that ADSEG inmates don't get, and they also, I believe, still can buy ice cream off of the monthly canteen. Your ADSEG shopping list is, of course, far more limited. You get only a fraction of what general population inmates get, and it's just very, very limited. Death row inmates get a lot more things, of course, and they get quarterly packages. So now they have things that if you are a friend of somebody on death row and they're willing to, they can try to get it to you. Occasionally, and it's rare now, it used to be a little more available. There are some staff who favor inmates and they'll pass things back and forth to where you don't have to fish it. But if you do need to fish it and you're close enough to death row, it used to be that they would fish it through the toilet. That includes certain aspirins, edibles like ice cream. Yeah, it's a whole different world in there. They fish everything through those toilets to the ADSEG inmates, including drugs. Drugs are obtained through so many channels in jail and prison. Firstly, by keistering them. I have never participated in and never will. At this point in my life, I've never even worn a tampon. I refuse to violate myself in that way. Okay, so that's what I'll say on that. Males and females keister in the incarceration system. It's common. Not right, but they do it because for them it's another mode of survival. The most I've done is fish along the floors under the cell doors. So that's another way. Going back to cleaning your area, you don't always get brooms and mops. Sometimes you have to clean by hand. Get on the floor and sweep by using a piece of cardboard, which is more and more difficult to get. Even when you buy tablets of paper in the county jail from the commissary, they usually come without the cardboard backing now. But when you could, you would use that cardboard, you would take it off of your tablet of paper and use it as a makeshift broom to get on the floor and sweep everything and then accumulate it and throw it in the trash. When you weren't given mops, what you use is one of the towels they give you, which you won't reuse. You're supposed to throw it in the trash, or a rag. You would put it on a broom when you could get a broom and blanket the broom with the towel, and you would Swiffer yourself. But this was even before Swiffer products or Swiffer type products existed. This was happening in the jails and in the prisons years and years. I'm being funny, but like millions of years, I'm exaggerating, before these products ever existed in society. So here's the crossover. Here's like an intersect or a parallel, however you want to term it, to where, cleaning, mopping. That's how they mopped when they were incarcerated and still do. And now you have Swiffer products in society. So you see that crossover. It's really interesting. But it's actually more effective than a mop, because when you wet that broom that has been blanketed with a solid rag and or towel, anything that's of terry cloth material, and you wet it and then you soak it with disinfectant, now you're mopping even more effectively because you're getting the floor in cool flat strips, so you're getting an even better cleaning. And of course you could even clean the walls, which need cleaning, and dust or whatever off of the ceiling of the cell or any other areas that you can't reach. And that's what they have been and still do, because you're so limited in what you get, and sometimes you get nothing. You have to be inventive. Even sometimes when they don't even want to give you rags to clean with, you use the toilet paper that you have. And so you accumulate as many rolls of toilet paper as you can. You can make makeshift pillows with the toilet paper. You keep unraveling it. That's wasting the paper, but you do what you have to do to survive. So to make a pillow with tissue, you keep unraveling it and making sure that it's fluffy. You don't flatten it down, and you put it in some kind of, if you get a pillowcase, sometimes you get pillowcases there in the jail. I don't know why, when no pillows exist in there. And so now you try to make yourself a pillow. Is it gonna flatten? Probably within the next 24 hours it'll be flat, but it's something, to make yourself a pillow, because for an extended period of time when you're sleeping with nothing under your head, and believe me, if you get an extra blanket and you try to roll it up or even fold it up to use as a pillow, eventually your neck hurts, you get a headache, because it becomes so solid and it starts getting even harder under your head with the impact of laying your head on it every day and every night. But these are things, you refold it, you keep refolding, you do what you can. You have to accumulate extras of everything. Yeah, it's contraband. Yeah, it's a violation of the rules and regulations. But if you don't do it, survival is almost impossible. You do whatever you have to, if somebody comes through with cigarettes and they're friendly with you and they give you one, you sell it to get other things that you need, like shampoo, if you don't shop, if you don't have the money on your account, on your books. You do things. This is life, And so these are some of the ways that inmates survive in the inmate life. And I actually have a viewer who's contacted me, Jerry, and he wanted to know something else. This is regarding the strip searches. Jerry's girlfriend, I won't reveal his email, but he contacted me. Hi Tressa, your videos are so very interesting. I saw your strip search video, and please, can I have questions? Of course, Jerry. um, are inmates barefoot, in parentheses, without socks during medical examination? And how does they examine feet of inmates, like toes, tops, soles? My girlfriend will be going to jail, and she's very shy about her feet, so on and so forth. So I'm going to keep uh, Jerry's confidentiality. And I believe that if this is so, then his girlfriend has already entered the unesteemed jail system. During strip searches, they don't traditionally strip search anymore because they've had a class action suit for that, which has been a major suit. It was briefly in the news, and you can research it now on the internet still. Now they scan your body through a life-size device, but they will still conduct a strip search if they feel it's necessary. Now, when they did strip search before they had the scanning devices, what they would do is they would, if you were just being brought into the county jail from the city jail and court arraignment, and from each court date that you were taken out to and being brought back to the jail after a court date, anytime you were being taken out and then being brought back into the jail, you were strip searched and you were herded with all of the other inmates. Even some keepaways were herded in with all of the other inmates to be strip searched in a large area, which is usually the bus bay. And yes, you were barefoot. They would have you, the deputies and CAs would herd you all in, and several of them would come out and start yelling at you, not just announcing, yelling at you. Now listen carefully. You will do only what we tell you when we tell you to do it. You will remove your shoes and socks. And if you're like me or a lot of people that are into self-preservation, you don't want to stand barefoot on those floors, because those floors too have been flooded at some point, and another and another and another, with unspeakable filth. But you're standing there and you don't get to clean your feet. You would stand there barefoot, holding your shoes and socks behind you, with you would be facing a wall with your back to the deputies and or CAs, and they would come around and they would squeeze the shoes and socks momentarily to make sure there's nothing in it, but that was just the first step. Then they would tell you to when they were done, they would tell all of the inmates collectively to place them on the ground. Now you're standing there still barefoot, and you would raise your feet, wiggle your toes so they could visually inspect. And then the strip search would progress from there. And when they were done, in fact, they would not allow you to put your socks back on. Put your socks in your pockets, do exactly as we say, pick up your shoes, put them on, and start walking. And you would go to the next phase, which is the next holding cell. And so your feet remain filthy, and a lot of the times they could be infected with fungus at the very least, which was another point of contention for me, because I would tell them with me, because they deemed me a keep away, and if they would strip me out by myself, I would tell them, I don't want to stand on the floor. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Yeah, I'm disobeying a direct order now, but I wouldn't do it because they're not going to let me clean my feet afterwards. It's not like they give you hand sanitizer. It's not like they care. They don't give a shit. This is how it was in there. So I had to do what I had to do to survive. And a lot of the times I will give them credit. Some of the deputies and CAs, either because they knew me and how I was, or just because they were a little more laid back, kick back, or cool, or they were just a little more decent than the others, they would say, fine, here, and they'd throw me a piece of paper and I'd stand on it, which is not a huge concession, but it's something, and I'm thankful that they would do that for me. They don't want to argue about it. I don't want to argue about it. We just want to get through this and go to the next phase. You know, this was the thought on both sides. So here, step on this. Or I would ask, can I take off my socks for you right now and just stand on top of my shoes so I'm not standing on the floor? And that's what I would do. You know, if you're being herded with a bunch of inmates, that's a no-go. It's not going to happen. You're standing on the floor barefoot. You better hope you don't catch something. That's all I can say. But now, of course, it's a little different. They scan you rather than do a full-on strip search. You know, so it's a little better than what it was. But I will say this, a lot of the things haven't changed. They've gotten even worse. When you're first booked into the county jail, whether the males or females, you get used underwear. It used to be that right in the booking process you got the used underwear. Now the females, I know, they do get one pair of disposable underwear now, which I would take any day over used underwear, because that's another thing. Like the lunch meat, I have never ever allowed myself to wear the used underwear. Just like I would ask for a concession about standing on the floor barefoot, I would ask, before they had the used underwear, I would ask, listen, I'll follow your rules, I will follow your orders, but please just give me one new pair of panties. That's all I ask for, until I could get to a better position and try to accumulate new ones if I was lucky enough to get them in the weekly laundry exchange roll-ups. That's how it was there. Now you get one pair of disposable panties. You better hope they fit you, and it's up to you while you're down there in the booking process to try through a semi-sympathetic CA or deputy to get one extra pair, because when you are taken to wherever you're taken, there's no more disposable underwear, and eventually when you're taken to a permanent housing unit and you get the weekly laundry exchange roll-ups, most of the time it's more used underwear that they claim they've washed and sanitized through the laundry process. That's a lie. It's not sanitized, it's not bleached. They actually use salt, and that's not enough to wash underwear that's been worn and bled on through menstruation cycles or diseases, and had other bodily fluids and materials of other inmates who have come through there with every disease known. And that's never been all right with me. Even wearing a sanitary pad in it for me has never been adequate, has never been enough, and I've refused to go for it. I've always protected myself. I've always been healthy, and I plan on staying healthy, and that's a self-preservation, and it's justified if you have to disobey direct order, break a rule, violate a rule, whatever you need to do to survive on that front. And the males probably should be the same way. You know, the county system should not be giving out underwear that's ever been used. You know, they're not so broke that they can't overcome that and give out new underwear or keep giving out disposable underwear. They have more money than they've ever revealed in any reports. So again, I'm so glad that you guys were here with me. I'm always open to positive comments. Hey, any comments, suggestions, questions, anything, contact me. And I'm always looking forward to the next vlog and your input. Thank you so much, and have a great weekend to come. Bye.